Snap shares closing up more than 4.5% after reports that China's ByteDance could be forced to divest TikTok sooner than previously expected, if it happens at all. Well, joining us now to discuss, Rohit Kulkarni of Roth, MKM, and Paul Gallant of TD Securities. Rohit, I'm particularly curious whether you think this near-term news is going to have any long-term impact on TikTok's competitors, because won't it take a while for this to play out, even if things don't go their way?
Hey, thanks for having me, John. Near term, I see less of a tailwind for a company like Snap. This is still in early exploratory phase. Many things can go TikTok's way. Many things cannot go TikTok's way over the next few months. So I feel from a fundamental standpoint, from an engagement standpoint, it feels kind of the move today was a little bit premature. But again, longer term, if this were to happen, then Snap shares are not up just 6%, but probably a lot more than 6%.
Okay. Now, Paul, I want to ask you about something else, this de minimis exception that has to do with how much tax gets paid, how much tariff on goods. I think it's under $800 that come into the country. A lot of people thinking about the impact on Temu and Shein after the House Ways and Means Committee voted to change that exception in certain ways. But won't it also potentially affect Amazon third-party sellers?
I'm not sure, John, but I think the answer is probably not. What the House committee did today is try to come up with a very surgical approach to only hit China-based importers that have been benefiting from this sort of exemption from the 25% tariff for imports. And that's one of the reasons that Democrats objected in the committee today, is they want to go bigger. They just want to hit everything coming in from China and sort of get rid of this de minimis exemption for all of those incoming Chinese products. But the Republicans today said, look, let's try to limit this to just Chinese companies. So I think Amazon and I think the other U.S. companies are okay under this bill.
Well, I do think there's a lot from China coming in and flowing through Amazon, is what I was saying.
Yeah, I think what I would add is also there is a $800 minimum that some of these companies like Shein and Temu are shipping items below that threshold. So there is that loophole that they're taking advantage of. So probably this idea is to close that loophole. Amazon sellers are shipping a lot more product in one fell swoop. So probably less of an impact on Amazon sellers, although probably 30% of goods are coming from China for Amazon.
It is pretty amazing, though, what a handful of years, what a difference that has made in terms of how everybody is approaching trade policy where China is concerned. Paul, I do want to go back to the fact that this TikTok bill has been tucked into the national security spending bills that we know are making their way back through Congress right now after being stalled for so many weeks on the heels of the strike that we saw by Iran, the attacks we saw by Iran on Israel over the weekend. How likely is it, as it has been attached to this, that it actually makes its way across the finish line? And just as importantly, how likely is it that this defense spending makes its way across the finish line?
Yeah, it's a really fascinating development, Morgan, that the Speaker of the House decided to package all of these bills together just today. A bit of a gamble. He's getting into some more resistance from his far right members of his caucus for doing this, but it looks like he's going to charge ahead and call a vote on all four bills as a single bill on Saturday. So it's really kind of a power play, I think, by the House and by the Speaker to force the Senate to accept a bill that has some stuff in there that they don't like, in order to get some stuff they do like. And I think, if I had to guess, I think the driver of this is the Iranian missile attacks on Israel last week that has created new momentum and new interest in Congress in making sure Israel has the money to defend itself. And one of the beneficiaries of that momentum might be Meta, Snap, Google, because of this TikTok bill being part of it.
Rohit, assuming that we actually see this bill cross the finish line, or this TikTok divestment piece of the legislation actually make it into law here, how likely is it that ByteDance would actually take those steps? And just as importantly, if it were to do that, and I realize it's probably a pretty big long shot, who would actually be in the market to buy it?
Yeah, I think too many ifs in there. In my opinion, if this bill were to pass, probably clearly very positive for companies on that list, Meta, Snap, to some extent Google as well, and to some lower extent maybe Pinterest. So those four companies benefit. I think when it comes to actually divesting, in my opinion, TikTok is the crown jewel in ByteDance's overall portfolio of things. It feels very hard that they would actually let go TikTok on a regulatory stance. They would probably fight to the last tooth and nail, in my opinion, and it won't be an easy divestiture. I would rather expect them to fold it back into the Chinese core ownership itself, rather than divesting it off to a U.S. ownership, is what based on some of the conversations I've had, feels like the path that Chinese ByteDance owners would take in the next 3-4 months if forced to divest.